Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast, a space for nurturing the ecosystem of business, body, and living. What would it be like if you gave your body a leadership role in your business and chose greater happiness every day? These are the conditions that create a healthy biome and a thriving business. I'm your host, Heather Nichols, and I'm so happy you're here. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast. I am excited to chat with you guys this week about creating a future and using business to do that. I think it's clear to everybody right now. I've talked about this quite a lot in my podcast. That there's some change required in the world. I don't really think anybody would say that the world is going in a great direction at the moment. That's a pretty obvious thing for most people. And yet, how do you create something totally different? And everybody has lots of ideas about that. And I never actually imagined that business could be a vehicle for that. I never imagined that I could actually use the vehicle of business to create a greater future and a different future. And when I started playing with the tools of the joy of business and access consciousness, I realized that business was so much bigger than I thought it was. I used to think of business as like wear a suit, go to a high rise, and get stressed out all day. And I was like, I don't think I ever want to do that. So never mind. And I'm so grateful because I actually had parents that kind of raised me to be an entrepreneur. Like they really encouraged me to go. They had both created their own thing and they encouraged me to do the same. And so it was always kind of like, there was always kind of this like assumption, a lot of like in a way in my world as a kid and young adult that I'd create a business. So I did, it was kind of like, yeah, I don't think I would want to just have a job. So I'll create a business. And I started creating my business as a body-centered psychotherapist. And I had a movement studio. I was a movement teacher. I did that for about 13 years in the early 2000s. And, all kinds of stuff, all kinds of different things. But my business, I didn't really ever think that I was getting into business. I just wanted to be a therapist. I wanted to be a dance teacher. And then all of a sudden I found myself buying this business when I bought my dance studio. I think that was in like maybe 1999 or 2000. I was quite young. I was like 28 or 29, the first business that I bought. And ran that business for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And, just created lots of different things. And I never really saw myself as a business person. And yet, like, here I was in business and needed to learn some things about it. And it was very different than what I had ever thought business could be or would be, because I was doing something that I loved. I was doing something that created a greater world and was a contribution to the world. And so I kind of, started a business, like kind of found myself being an entrepreneur by default in a way, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs do, especially when you're a solopreneur and you're an artist. You have something that you love to create. It's a creative outlet for you. And then all of a sudden it's a business and you're, trying to learn about that kind of stuff. I think a lot of artistic entrepreneurs, whatever, use that word artistic broadly, find themselves doing business, never having really thought they wanted to do that, but there's something that they want to contribute to the world. And for so long, I sort of thought that was like not real business. I didn't really I didn't really, because business again to me was like suit, high rise, stress, not fun, nothing fun about it. And so anything else was sort of like not business. It was just sort of like this thing that I did, and then some people paid me for it. And, I didn't realize that business could be a creative outlet. The business was actually the business of my life and living. It was like my whole life, my household, my relationships, my body, my family, all of that could be included in the business of my life and living. And I also didn't realize that for me, kind of like the only way that I really would or could create a business that was fulfilling to me and enjoyable to me was to do something that actually made the world a greater place and contributed to a greater future. And so and it was so great to find this conversation that actually allowed me to step into that in a different way, and to start to see that creating a greater I could really be in the business of creating a greater future and creating a different future. And that anybody could, even if you sell cars or vacuum cleaners or whatever, that you can still use your business to create a greater world and a greater future. It's part of it is just the intention that you have, the desire that you have, the, kind of how you bring yourself to your business. And it can be any business where you can bring yourself in a way that is different, that is a contribution, that creates greater, where you're not functioning from competition, you're not functioning from, it's all and only about the bottom line. You're not functioning from, a lot of computation and lack and stress and all that stuff. But it's like, how do you bring yourself to your business, whatever your business may be? How do you bring yourself to it? And to me, that's part of the entrepreneurial biome is the full, it's like the context of your whole life and the future you would like to see, the future you would like to create, and like how that, how you show up with that. And so you can bring levels of kindness, levels of honoring of other people, levels of gratitude. You can bring, doing business in a really different way. You can bring all of those things to your business activities. And in doing so, you can change people's worlds and you can change the world. And right now, that is so required. I remember one time there's this conversation that we have a lot in Access Consciousness that's about, what if the purpose of money was to change the world, to create a greater world? And when I heard that, I was like, yes, like that makes so much sense to me. There's nothing else about money that really makes sense to me. I would like to use money to create a greater world and a greater future. So yes, please. And so I just started asking for that. I started choosing that, and I started moving in that direction, and just like including that possibility in everything that I did. And I was developing a website at the time with a graphic designer, and she, had designed this beautiful website for me and sent it out. We had approved the design, and it was now in the phases of going to the programmer. And the programmer basically came back with I think the quote for what it was going to cost to do the site was 3 times what we thought it was going to be. And so she came back to me and she said, this website is going to be, it's going to be 3 times more than we thought it was going to cost. And I just was like, okay, well, that's just how it is. We've already designed it. Here we are. And I'll just create the money, which I did. And part of it was that I've always had the point of view that money is just like, it's something that you can create, by your choice. And it's not about, it's not there or it is there. It's like, if I choose to create it, I'll create it. And so to me, I just went, all right, well, I'll just create more. And she was so blown away by that. And I didn't realize at the time that that was a really different way of doing things. I didn't realize that like other people might have gotten really mad or upset or pulled the plug, or I just didn't think about it. It was like, this was an honest, she didn't know, this was just kind of an honest thing that happened. And because I really wanted I wanted a website that didn't look like a template. It was, it was a very custom website. I learned a lot about custom websites by having a couple of them. And I was like, yeah, templates aren't so bad, actually. Custom websites are, whoa, they are a bear and they break all the time. And, very, very, yeah, it was an interesting learning experience. So, but anyway, but she came back to me and she said, you changed my life with that conversation. And you changed my life with the way that you handled that. And that's a totally different perspective on money and, how to do money. And you just like, you don't really realize how different you are. And I didn't. And I'm not sharing this to, sing my own praises. It's more just like, I would so much rather create a greater future and use money to change the world. And that was an experience. That was a moment where I was like, oh, I've been asking to use money to create a greater future and use money to create a greater world and to change people's lives. And I did, by not freaking out and not doing the whole thing that so many other people would have done, that I didn't even know that was like something that I could, that I would do or could do. It wasn't even in my reality. And so it was so cool because that was a situation where it really showed up. One of my requests, to use money to change people's lives and change the world, showed up so much greater than I thought. And in such a different way than I thought. And it was fine. The website was, it all blip in internet. The website got, okay, my internet is cutting out a little bit. But it ended up being fine. And actually more than fine, it ended up being great. And so this is what I would, that was just one of the ways in which I was like, started to explore what it was like to use my business to create a greater future. And then of course there's like everything that I do, because I facilitate people, I help people create businesses, I help people have a different reality with their bodies, I help them bring those together. And then, I facilitate people in every area of their lives, relationships and creation and finances. And, to me, it's all part of the beauty of being alive and creating the business of your life and living. And the business of your life and living is the whole biome and includes everything. And so that's one of the obvious ways in which I've been using business to create a greater future. But now we're at this real like precipice in the world of the future really needs to be created in a very different way. And it needs to be created as different and greater than it's ever been. And that requires innovation, and it requires actually engagement with business in a really different way. And I look at it and I'm like, if all businesses in the world functioned from a lot more kindness, a lot more honoring of the people involved, like recognizing that there's no such thing as competition, getting out of like the only thing that matters is the bottom line. Sure, the bottom line matters, but it's not the only thing. There's so many stories that I could tell similar to the one I just told that I won't about, just so many ways in which I've not worried so much about the bottom line, created something really different and really contributed to people and created a far greater future. And, I have millions of stories, not just me, my own, endeavors, but a lot of other people that I know too, who are committed to that. And the funny thing is that when you do that, your bottom line just grows as a result. It's a kind of a byproduct of creating a greater future. And that's really, I could have done this whole episode on that is, money. What if money is truly a byproduct of creating a greater future and a greater world? It follows that. Money follows creation. It follows a greater future. It follows joy. And you don't have to think about it as much or as hard as you think you do when you're, when you're really engaged with creation in a different way, and you're engaged with the future in a different way. And I think now is a time where we all really need to be, those of us who are, concerned about the future and would like to have, well, a future period, but a greater future it's time for us to really steward the future, be stewards of the future and move in the direction of the future that each one of us knows is possible. And everybody has a very unique awareness of that, a unique sense of that. And using business to create that it's such a powerful thing, because business is such a huge, it's just so massive in our world, how businesses function. And it's what creates all of the the economy, the global economy. It's really a centerpiece to our world. And so business is, if we can affect business in that way and we can utilize it to create a greater future, then and that becomes more of the sort of norm in the world, or at least the people who are looking for something different realize that that's something that they can combine with their business and do with their business, or create with their business, then that's the beginning of a really different world, because the activities of businesses ripple out into everything. You take it home from work with you to your family. How is your body included in your business? Like that's a big one of mine, a big passion of mine, is to facilitate entrepreneurs and also, anybody in business to be including their bodies, to be treating their bodies well, and nurturing their bodies. And there's so much, you can watch other episodes for that, but our bodies can really facilitate the creation of a greater future with business in a huge way when we start to not just be in good health, but actually develop a relationship where we listen to our bodies and we have conversations with them and we allow them to give, like, to sort of share their wisdom in our business activities. And there's, like I said, that's not really for this podcast, but there's a lot of other podcasts that I've done around that. And it's something I'm going to be bringing to the world a lot more as I go. I'm developing some things right now to bring that woven conversation of body and business together into the world in a different and greater way. So I digress. I'm like, oh, one of my favorite topics. I just need to spend a little time there. But I look at it and I'm like, wow, if we could really, if those who were interested in a greater future included the pursuit of that, the creation of that, the endeavoring, in that direction, as a like front and center in their business. And you started to look at all of your business and commerce activities with the inclusion of the question of what is the future that this is going to create. It doesn't have to be 100% about that, but if you start to include the awareness of the future, the nurturing of a different future, then your whole business will actually get greater because you're creating a greater future. Well, guess what that includes? Your business. Guess who it includes? You and everybody participating in that. You create a greater future. The future is greater for you as well, for your business as well, for your employees as well. So it's actually so pragmatic. And I remember having a conversation with my dad at one point, and he's a very, very astute investor, and has had a lot of success investing in the stock market. And he said, I was talking to him about, this was so long ago. It was when there was a little grocery store in Boulder, Colorado, where I live. It was called Wild Oats. And Wild Oats was about to go public. And I was like, hey, Dad, I want to buy stock in Wild Oats. And he just basically said, not a good idea. I wouldn't recommend doing that. And we had a few conversations about different businesses that I wanted to invest in over the years. And he always kind of just said, like, don't mix business with your don't mix investing with your values. Like, yes, you value, natural foods and organic foods. This was in mid 90s, I think, early to mid 90s. So it was quite a long time ago. And he just said, keep your values as that, and then do your investing from a different space, and that never really made sense to me. That was what he did, and he had a lot of success with it. But to me, it never made sense. And I took his advice, and I did not invest in Wild Oats. And Wild Oats later on was purchased by Whole Foods, which was then purchased by Amazon. And funny thing is my dad, I think he has stock in Amazon. So anyway, it would have been a very, very good investment, point being. And it would have been driven by what I valued, and it was, that was kind of a little bit of a tough lesson. It's like, wow, I could have actually made a lot of money had I followed what I knew about that. But it just also drove home to me that I can't separate those. I can't separate investing in my values. I can't separate the future that I want to create. Like, I'm going to use my money to create that greater future. I'm going to use my business to create that greater future. I can't separate from that. It's who I am. And so it's easy for me to say, like, how I create a greater future with my businesses by helping people, because I'm in that profession, let's just say. But truly, I want to expand this for all industry. And beautiful example of this, and I'm not going to get any of these facts correctly. I don't remember the details of this, but I remember hearing about, I think his name is Chenard, the guy who started Patagonia and the outdoor clothing company. And what he's done with his money and the company it's such a phenomenal, he's reinvested all of his money basically in the creation of a greater future and a greater world. And it's not just about the investment of money, because it's also like, how do you invest in your people? The people that work with you. Do you invest in them? Do you, show up interacting with your clients from a place of kindness? Do you ask them how they're doing? Do you, like, how do you bring those things that it's basically like, what's the world that you would like to live in? If you could, play God and say, like, this is the world I would like to live in. And this is what it looks like. It looks like, so for me, it looks like true kindness, which, again, story for another time, but like true kindness and honoring of each other, allowance of our differences, celebration of our differences, um, and contribution, honoring of the earth, honoring of each other, honoring of our bodies. That's a big one for me. So all those types of things. So it's like, if I show up not just in my business, but in every area of my life as the future that I wish to see, as the world that I wish to live in. And do I do that perfectly? No. Do I do it all the time? No. There are times where I'm like, I hate people. I'm in an airport and I want you all to go away, and I don't talk to people. And then there are times, like I had this beautiful conversation in the airport the other day with this beautiful lady, and actually, like, really, I think I might have really changed her future by some of the things that we talked about. And she kind of indicated that. And it was just this sweet little conversation, and it was because I made a priority to talk to her. I was like, I want to talk to people more out in the world, not just on, podcast. And so, when we bring those values, when we bring that sense of the future we'd like to create, when we show up in the world as that in all of our business and commerce activities, and we weave the threads of that through what we create as our business and how we create it, even like having a return policy that, like it honors how people actually use your products, or, there's just so many different ways that you can look at that. And instead of being like, too bad, it's like, no, actually, honoring people, which of course includes honoring you as well. But looking at all of your activities, how you create your life and what you're creating as your life. And then it's like, how are you weaving that through? How are you weaving your vision of the future through everything that it is that you're doing? And again, like, I need to hear this too. And for me, I just always have an invitation to myself to step it up and do something greater than I've done before, and be something greater than I've done before. And what I have seen with this conversation in regards to the profitability of businesses is that well, for one thing, this is the creation of profit. And profit is not just the financial bottom line. It is not just the math that yields a black rather than a red a number. It's the future that you create, and the profitability of your life and your business is about the greater future that you create. And the financial profit, the bottom line, will follow that in so many ways. And it's interesting because when we take our intense focus off of the bottom line and we put it on the profit, like the bigger picture profit of the entire future, it truly begins to become something that is just, it's so much bigger. And your whole life, the whole entrepreneurial biome, thrives from that. And I did do a podcast with Dr. Dane here about profit. So I recommend that you go back and listen to that. It was a beautiful conversation. It was, I don't know, it was in December or January of January of 2024, this year, I think it was. So about 5 months ago. So great one to listen to if you want to explore more about profit. But the point is, when you're engaged in the creation of the profitability of the future for all, a greater world, the bottom line will reflect that. It will be part of that. And just one final piece about innovation, because innovation is when you innovate, you are making new. You're making something that hasn't existed before, and that's such an essential aspect of the creation of a greater future and of business right now, because innovation it's critical. I mean, the businesses that we have now that are have such an huge impact on the world, you can't keep doing the same thing. I know I'm stating the obvious, and this is kind of a saying, you can't do the same thing and expect a different result, but it's true. It's really true. And so if we keep going with our businesses the way that we have been, and I mean all businesses, I'm including my business, I'm including, even if you have a business that is really about creating a greater world, it's like we still have to look at those, how we set them up, what we're offering. Like, we need to look at our businesses and the businesses of our lives and the biome all the time to assess, does this still match the future that I know? Like, because the future gets greater every day, and the future that we are aware of gets greater every day. And we need to sort of continually keep up with that. And it's not about, working our butts off and, exhausting ourselves, but it is about being in the question constantly of like, is this still, am I still on track with this business? And is this business still on track to create the greatest future possible that I know of, And this is where question comes in really dynamically, because if you're not truly in question, then you can't innovate. Innovation has to be preceded by questions and curiosity. Always. Any innovation that has ever been done by any person ever has come from curiosity about what else is possible, what else is available, what new, what next, what more. And it may not be a process that you do just in your own world, but it may be something that you do, with other people, or, there's so many different ways to innovate. And even mix that up, and find different ways, new ways to innovate. Include your body if you don't, and if you don't know how to do that, have a session with me, or listen to my podcasts, or, do some, listening, reading, whatever you want to do around that. Or let's have a chat. And I love doing private sessions. So you can always book that with me on my website. I actually really love innovating with people. I love being in creative conversation and kind of brainstorming. And to me, it's more like awareness storming with people. I just love throwing ideas around. And so it's fun to really extrapolate like that with other people, because someone adds something here and someone adds something here, and then you go over here and then over here, and it's just like things get greater. It's a very cool, energizing process, and it is required right now. We cannot have a different world if we don't innovate toward a greater world, a different world. We cannot have a greater tomorrow if we're not actively pursuing that, choosing it, moving in the direction of it, creating toward it. And the greater tomorrow, the greater future, we have no idea what it looks like. That's why innovation is necessary. We're creating it as we speak. It's not about discovering it. It's not about uncovering it. It's actively being in the creation of it. And it requires dynamic curiosity, innovation, dedication to creating a future. and being willing to do something different, be something different, show up different, because the same thing will yield the same thing. And we don't need more of the same thing, I mean, there are some things that are wonderful, and what if even those could be greater, and sometimes it's even time to let things go that are wonderful so that you can have things that are phenomenal. And that's one of the, scarier aspects of how we, how creation works in a way. I mean, I don't really believe in fear, but for some people it is. Or just sort of, letting go of something that's like, what is, that seems to be working in favor of something even greater that you don't know what it is. That's really that's what innovation actually is. And so, I invite you to look and see, what is it what are you up to? How do you bring yourself to the world? What's your biome? If you assess the entrepreneurial biome of your life right now, your business, body, and living right now, assess it, take stock, look at it, and just go, okay, so, where do we need to pull some weeds, and is there, what else? Do we need to get some more land to expand into? Do we need to maybe cut down some trees that seem like great trees, but they're actually blocking the sun for the whole biome would thrive if we did, although I never really am a fan of cutting down trees. So bad analogy, but sometimes you need to, and so it's all, looking at not being short-sighted about it and attached to anything, and being willing to let go of those things that's time to let go of them, even if they're working, maybe even they're lucrative, but sometimes it's taking a big leap into a different future. And the world right now, I think, is really ready for a big leap. And in a lot of ways, we're beginning to take it, and we're, sort of preparing for that, and at various phases of it. And we can all contribute to it by every single day, choosing something different, something new, something greater, being curious in a way we weren't before, and exploring possibilities through innovation and different choices, and the dedication to the creation of a greater future that actually will grow your business beautifully, dynamically, and differently, and give you also the deep satisfaction of being part of the creation of a greater future. And business, as I've said, is it's such a powerful vehicle for doing that. So I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to have the vehicle of business, and multiple businesses. We can create multiple businesses to move in that direction. So thank you so much for being here, being you, listening, tuning in, and I will see you next time. Bye for now. Thank you for joining me for the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. For more resources, check out my website at heathernichols.com and my social media channels as well. Have a beautiful day, and remember that your business thrives when you do.